It was just another rainy evening in the small town of Oakwood when J.D. Vance pulled into the gravel parking lot of Maple Creek Diner. The neon open sign flickered in the window, its red glow reflecting off puddles on the pavement. His stomach grumbled. He hadn't eaten since morning, and the thought of a hot homemade meal was too good to pass up. As he stepped inside, the scent of fried potatoes and fresh coffee filled the air. The soft hum of country music played from the overhead speakers, mingling with the quiet chatter of locals. A young waitress, her curly brown hair tied back in a ponytail, smiled as she balanced 3 plates along her arm. "Sit anywhere you like," she called out, glancing at JD as she moved toward a table of regulars. JD chose a booth by the window, flipping open the menu. The special was meatloaf with mashed potatoes, just like his grandmother used to make. The memory warmed him. He had spent years clawing his way out of poverty, building a life beyond the struggling town he once called home. But he never forgot where he came from. The waitress returned with a glass of water, her notepad in hand. "Can I start you off with some coffee?" "That'd be great, thank you," JD replied, setting the menu down. She turned toward the coffee pot, but before she could pour, a voice called from the kitchen. "Talia, come here a second." A woman in her 50s, wearing an apron with the name Melissa embroidered on it, stepped out from behind the counter. She had flour on her hands, but when she saw JD, she froze. Her face hardened. Talia, the waitress, walked over hesitantly, glancing back at JD with confusion. "What is it?" she asked in a whisper. Melissa spoke in hushed but urgent tones, her words sharp and clipped. Talia's eyes widened. A hush spread through the diner as customers turned their heads toward the tense exchange. Finally, Melissa wiped her hands on her apron and walked straight to JD's table. Talia followed closely behind, clutching her notepad like a shield. "I'm sorry," Melissa said, her voice tight, "but I can't serve you here." JD blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me," Melissa crossed her arms. "I know who you are, Mr. Vance. I don't agree with your politics, and I don't feel comfortable having you in my restaurant. This is my business, my choice." Silence fell over the diner. The clink of silverware stopped. A man at the counter set down his coffee cup a little too hard. JD could feel every eye on him. His first instinct was to argue. He could have pointed out that businesses shouldn't turn people away for their political beliefs. He could have pulled out his phone, snapped a picture, and blasted the diner on social media. Instead, he took a slow breath. "I understand," he said simply, setting his menu aside. He met Melissa's eyes, not with anger, but with something else. Disappointment, sadness, he wasn't sure. Melissa had braced herself for a fight, but none came. "Thank you for your honesty," JD added before sliding out of the booth. He didn't stomp off. He didn't cause a scene. He just walked to the door, nodded at Talia, and stepped out into the night. The bell above the door jingled, and then he was gone. Back in his car, JD sat still for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. His stomach still ached with hunger, but now there was a different weight on his chest. Through the window, he could see Melissa talking animatedly to customers, some nodding in agreement, others looking uneasy. Talia stood by the coffee pot, staring at the floor. JD exhaled and scrolled through his contacts, his thumb hovering over a name before pressing call. "Hey, it's JD," he said when the voice on the other end picked up. "Remember that thing we talked about last month? I think I found the perfect place." He glanced back at the glowing diner sign, then smiled slightly. "Yeah, tomorrow works. I'll send you the details. Trust me, this is gonna surprise everyone." He ended the call, started the car, and drove away, humming along to Johnny Cash on the radio. He didn't feel angry anymore. He felt something else, hope. Talia's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., jolting her awake. She groaned, fumbling for her phone before finally silencing the beeping. Mornings were the worst. She threw on her uniform, checked in on her grandmother, Eliza, and left a note on the counter. "Lunch in the fridge. Call if you need anything. Love you." The streets were still dark as she walked toward the diner, rubbing her arms against the morning chill. But as she rounded the corner, she came to an abrupt stop. A crowd stood outside Maple Creek Diner. Not protesters, not reporters, just people. 30, maybe more. Some sipped gas station coffee, others chatted quietly. A woman in a red coat turned and smiled at Talia. "Is it true JD Vance recommended this place?" "What?" Talia blinked. No, that's... He did, a man interrupted. I saw his post. Said it had the best home cooking in the county. Talia's stomach dropped. That wasn't what she had expected. And then a news van pulled up. Inside the diner, Melissa stared at her phone, her hands trembling as she reread the post. Was turned away from this little gem in Oakwood last night because the owner didn't agree with my politics. Respect her right to refuse service. But trust me, folks, the meatloaf smelled amazing, and the people inside looked happy. Small businesses are the heart of America, even when they don't want my business. If you're in the area, give Maple Creek Diner a try and form your own opinion. Support local, always. Melissa looked up at Talia in disbelief. He's sending people here? It doesn't make sense, Talia murmured. Why would he do that after you kicked him out? Melissa had no answer, but out in the dining room, every table was full. For the first time in years, there was a waiting list. A week later, after a flurry of reporters, debates, and unexpected business, Melissa found herself doing something she never imagined. She wrote a letter to J.D. Vance. It was an invitation. I owe you an apology. If you're willing, I'd like to offer you the meal you were denied. No press, no politics, just dinner. Also, my waitress's grandmother, Eliza, believes she knew your grandmother when they were young. She has photographs and stories. If you'd like to hear them, you're welcome to join us. JD's response came swiftly. Melissa, thank you. I'd be honored. May I bring dessert? On a quiet Friday evening, JD stepped into the diner once again. But this time the air was different. Melissa shook his hand. Eliza smiled as she placed a weathered photo album on the table. JD sat beside her, his fingers tracing an old black and white photograph. His voice caught in his throat. Mama. For the next 2 hours, there was no talk of politics, no debates, just stories, memories, laughter. A bridge was built that night, one neither of them had expected. And maybe in a world so divided, that was the most surprising thing of all.